My name is Daisy Ellsworth, and until 4:12 p.m. last Friday afternoon, I was the Senior Vice President of Strategic Client Partnerships at Hartwell Dynamics, one of the largest engineering consulting firms serving aerospace, government infrastructure, and high-risk industrial manufacturing clients across North America. For 11 years, I built what executives called relationship stability architecture, the backbone of $510 million in active contracts. 41 major clients depended on my leadership, not because of a title, but because when billion-dollar projects stalled, I was the one who made things move again. I never imagined the career I built would end with a PowerPoint slide and a punchline. 3 weeks earlier, the board hired a new CEO, Michael Barrett, Harvard MBA ex-management consultant. Impressive on paper, and absolutely obsessed with one thing: cutting costs. His first executive meeting was scheduled for Friday. Mandatory attendance for all department heads and senior leadership. At 3:58 p.m., I walked into the glass-walled conference room. The atmosphere felt tense. Too many rigid shoulders, too many people staring at laptops just to avoid eye contact. Michael stood at the front of the room, hands clasped behind his back like a general about to brief his soldiers. "Let's begin," he said. The presentation title appeared on the screen: Operational Efficiency Through Compensation Optimization. Corporate language always sounds calm, clinical, neutral. But I've learned something across 11 years in high-stakes client management. Neutral words often hide destructive intentions. Michael clicked to the next slide. Our first area of concern is salary inflation. Many of our senior roles exceed benchmark expectations. He spoke as if reading a weather report. Mild annoyance, nothing emotional. Slide 3 appeared. My name, my title, my salary. $380,000, bolded. Red. The room shifted, heads turning toward me, then away, as if looking too long might make them guilty by association. Michael laughed. Not a full laugh, more a sharp exhale meant to belittle. Daisy Ellsworth, Senior Vice President, $380,000 annually, 60% above benchmark. He paused. He wanted the silence. He wanted the weight of humiliation to land. "No offense, Daisy," he added, smiling like a man performing kindness instead of offering it. "But this pay structure suggests a misunderstanding of value." I felt heat crawl up my neck. Not shame, but controlled anger. I didn't speak. Not yet. He continued, clicking to another slide showing a lower salary structure, $215,000. "A market-aligned adjustment," he said, "effective next quarter." My voice finally came. Low, calm, controlled. "Michael, why was this not discussed privately?" He tilted his head, expression empty of empathy. "Transparency fosters accountability." That sentence told me everything I needed to know. There are leaders who build, and leaders who destroy so they can feel powerful holding the rubble. I didn't defend myself. I didn't justify my work. Because humiliation disguised as policy never invites dialogue. It invites obedience. And I do not obey disrespect. The rest of the meeting blurred into meaningless corporate metrics. Cuts, restructuring, projected savings. At 4:12 p.m., the meeting ended. Executives packed their laptops with the frantic urgency of people trying not to get dragged under the same water. Nobody spoke to me. Not one person. Silence. That was the culture Michael had created in 45 minutes. I returned to my office, closed the door, sat down, and breathed. On my wall hung a framed award from a federal infrastructure client for saving a $6.4 billion aerospace grid system and preventing a national failure. But to Michael, I was a line item, an expense, a number to shrink. At 4:47 p.m., I opened a blank resignation letter. No drama, no emotion, just truth. Resignation notice. Effective immediately after today's public compensation decision and the handling of executive communication, I no longer believe Hartwell Dynamics recognizes the value of strategic client leadership. I resign effective immediately. Daisy Ellsworth, I sent it. Packed my office in 11 minutes. Walked out of the building at 5:03 p.m. without looking back. And as the elevator doors closed, an unexpected calm washed over me. Not fear, not regret. Clarity. Because in that moment, I knew something Michael did not. He didn't cut a salary. He severed the trust holding nearly half of Hartwell's revenue together. And trust is not replaceable. Not with a cheaper employee. Not with a benchmark. Friday, I left quietly. Monday, the consequences would begin. I spent the weekend in silence, not because I was unsure of my decision, but because my body needed stillness after the emotional hit and run of that meeting. Saturday morning, I made coffee, sat on my balcony overlooking Lake Michigan, and waited for something to surface. Anger, fear, guilt, doubt. None of them came. What I felt instead was relief. A quiet, steady certainty that I had walked away at exactly the right moment. But certainty doesn't erase disbelief. Several times I caught myself whispering the same question. Did he really do that? By Sunday afternoon, the question changed. What happens now? I hadn't planned revenge. I hadn't contacted a single client. I hadn't even updated my resume. But life has a way of responding when someone crosses a boundary with cruelty instead of honesty. At 9:14 p.m. Sunday night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number? I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Daisy? It's Mark Townsend, Douglas Aerospace. Douglas Aerospace represented $42 million of Hartwell's annual revenue. I had worked with Mark for 9 years, through manufacturing failures, emergency redesigns, budget crises, and political pressure inside federal defense committees. His voice wasn't angry. It was something worse, confused and disappointed. I heard you left Hartwell, he said. Is it true? Yes. Silence. Then, why? I could have told him everything. The presentation, the humiliation, the revised salary. But I didn't. Because I wasn't going to weaponize the truth. The truth didn't need help. Leadership and values shifted, I said gently. I realized it was time to move on. He exhaled, a frustrated sigh that told me he already knew more than he was saying. Daisy, do you have a new position? Not yet. Well, he said, voice steady now. Wherever you land, call me. Douglas doesn't work with companies. We work with people, and we worked with you. That sentence lingered in the room long after the call ended. I didn't sleep much after that. Not because I was anxious, because a shift had begun. One I hadn't initiated. At 7:42 a.m., Monday morning, the real fallout started. My phone rang again. This time the caller ID wasn't an unknown number. It was a name I knew well. Ridgefield Robotics. $31 million annual contract. Then, Northgate Infrastructure. Sterling Military Systems. Blackwell Engineering. 4 calls in 2 hours. All variations of the same message. We heard you're gone. What happened? Who's handling our projects now? Are you staying in the industry? Because we want to follow you if you are. I repeated the same sentence to all of them. I cannot solicit, but if you choose differently, I respect your decision. By 11:23 a.m., 9 clients had reached out. 9. Without a single email, call, or announcement from me. At 12:06 p.m., my former colleague and friend, Leah, texted. Leah. Daisy. You need to sit down. The client portal is lighting up. Contract review requests. Audit inquiries. Renewal pauses. Someone sent a screenshot of your office being empty through the engineering Slack channels. The clients know. Like all of them. Michael is panicking. I stared at the message. Not with satisfaction, but with the heavy understanding that something irreversible had begun. Leadership often assumes loyalty belongs to logos, buildings, and corporate vision statements. But loyalty, real loyalty, belongs to trust built over years of showing up when things were hard. At 1:41 p.m., Michael finally called. I watched the phone vibrate on my table. 1 ring, 2, 3. I didn't answer. He sent a follow-up email instead. Stiff, formal, stripped of the arrogance he had displayed 3 days earlier. Subject: clarification request. Daisy, it appears your resignation has caused significant concern among several client accounts. We need to discuss transition planning and ensure continuity. Please contact me as soon as possible. Michael Barrett, Chief Executive Officer, Transition Planning. That phrase, so procedural, so dismissive, would have made me laugh if the situation weren't so predictable. He hadn't planned for the possibility that the relationships I managed weren't transferable. He assumed titles carried trust. He assumed loyalty could be reassigned. But aerospace engineers, military contracts, and industrial manufacturers don't trust easily. And when they do, they trust people, not companies, not CEOs, not cost-saving strategies. By 5:05 p.m., Monday, 9 major clients had formally paused or declined contract renewals. 46% of Hartwell's revenue was now unstable. And Michael had no idea the storm had only just begun. Because client trust doesn't disappear quietly. It leaves in waves, and Monday was only the first. By Tuesday morning, it was no longer whispers, assumptions, or quiet internal movement. It was visible, public, measurable, and it was happening faster than anyone at Hartwell Dynamics could control. I woke at 6:18 a.m. to more missed calls. 5 from clients, 2 from journalists in the manufacturing sector, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize until I listened to the voicemail. It was the chair of the Hartwell board. Her tone was clipped, controlled, and cold. "Daisy, I'd like to speak to you before the situation escalates further." Before the situation escalates. It already had. At 8:03 a.m., I received a text from Leah. "Emergency board meeting. Michael looks sick. No one can reach half the major accounts. They want to know if you're responsible." I stared at that last line for several seconds. Responsible? No. But necessary? Yes. At 9:20 a.m., another email came in, forwarded from a former colleague in legal compliance. The subject line said everything. Contract termination, 30 days notice, Douglas Aerospace. Then another. Request for transition packet plus vendor reevaluation, Northgate Infrastructure. Then another. Immediate pause on active engineering scope, Sterling Military Systems. Same pattern, same reason, same implication. Hartwell hadn't just lost contracts. They had lost confidence. By noon, 9 clients had initiated formal offboarding or renegotiation processes. And Michael? He finally snapped. At 12:41 p.m., his number appeared on my phone again, this time accompanied by a message. "Michael, answer." I didn't. He called again, then again. On the 4th call, I answered, not because I owed him anything, but because silence was no longer enough. His voice was different. No arrogance, no certainty, no rehearsed corporate tone. There was something else now. Panic. "Daisy, we need to talk. This situation is spiraling. Clients are terminating contracts. Some are demanding you personally handle transition calls. We need to control the narrative." Control. That was always the real priority. Not respect, not leadership, not acknowledging the damage he'd caused. Control. I remained calm. "Michael, I told you Friday. I resigned because I would not be publicly diminished. I haven't reached out to a single client." "That doesn't matter," he snapped. "They're acting like you were Hartwell. That's ridiculous. No single person carries that much weight." I let a quiet pause settle between us. He needed to hear it. He needed to sit in it. "Michael," I said evenly, "you believed numbers defined value. You believed that a benchmark salary justified humiliation. You forgot something essential. In industries that involve trust, memory, and crisis response, relationships are the infrastructure, not spreadsheets." He didn't respond, so I continued. "You didn't cut my salary. You cut the bridge holding your clients to your company." Finally, he exhaled sharply, frustration bleeding into desperation. "What would it take to bring you back?" There it was. The pivot. The reversal. Just 4 days earlier, he mocked my compensation as excessive. Now he was attempting negotiation with the same person he dismissed as replaceable. "I'm not interested," I said. "We can review compensation, title changes, equity, reinstatement, a formal apology if necessary." Formal apology. As if dignity was a box to check. "No," I said again, voice steady. "I won't return to a company that waited for a financial crisis to recognize my worth." Silence. Then a low, frustrated growl in his voice. "You're ruining us." "No," I corrected softly. "I simply stopped allowing you to ruin me." I ended the call. At 3:02 p.m., Reuters published an article. Hartwell Dynamics faces major client retention crisis. Following executive departure sources indicate 9 key accounts have halted or terminated contracts after the exit of Senior Vice President Daisy Ellsworth. Within hours, the story spread across industry newsletters, supply chain networks, and defense contracting circles. By 5:30 p.m., I received messages from 5 competing firms, all asking the same question. Are you open to discussing a leadership role? I didn't respond yet. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because timing matters. And right now, the timing wasn't about opportunity. It was about truth revealing itself. By sunset, the numbers were confirmed. 46% of Hartwell Dynamics' active revenue was now classified as at risk. 1 PowerPoint slide, 1 public humiliation, 1 short-sighted decision. And the foundation Michael thought was made of contracts was actually made of trust. Trust he never built. Trust he never respected. Trust he just lost. By Wednesday morning, the calls had shifted from curiosity to urgency. Clients were no longer asking what happened. They were asking where I was going. At 8:11 a.m., I sat at my dining table, laptop open, emails flooding in faster than I could read them. Some were short and direct. We will only finalize renewal if Daisy is managing the account. Others were emotional in ways I wasn't expecting. You were the only reason we trusted Hartwell through those failures. If you're gone, that trust is gone too. In corporate environments, people like to pretend relationships are transactional, replaceable, and immune to personality. But every project crisis, every midnight call, every saved contract, those moments create something spreadsheets can't measure: loyalty. At 9:37 a.m., another email appeared. This one from a private equity firm I had interacted with years ago during a joint project review. Subject: confidential discussion request. Daisy, we are following the situation closely. If you are considering re-entering leadership in the engineering or defense supply space, we would like to discuss potential backing for a new firm. No expectations, just a conversation. Jonathan Gray, Graybridge Capital. I read the message twice. Then a third time, a new firm. The idea hit me like a quiet answer to a question I hadn't realized I was asking. Not replacement, not negotiation, not returning somewhere familiar, building something of my own. But I didn't respond yet. I needed clarity, not adrenaline. At 10:22 a.m., my phone rang again, this time from a number I knew better than almost any other. Thomas Hale, U.S. Department of Defense Infrastructure Division. His role wasn't just high level. It was decisive, strategic, the kind of position where a single comment could alter the trajectory of a corporation. Daisy, he said as soon as I answered. Tell me what happened. I explained the situation, simply without exaggeration and without the bitterness I could have justified. He listened. No interruptions, no sighs, just quiet attention. When I finished, he spoke with the steady authority of someone who had dealt with both war zones and boardrooms. Well, he said, Hartwell just made one of the most expensive mistakes I've ever witnessed. I didn't respond. I waited. We've worked with Hartwell for 14 years, he continued. But the truth is, we never worked with Hartwell. We worked with you. And I'm not comfortable leaving national-level projects in the hands of someone who thinks leadership is humiliation. My throat tightened. Not with emotion, but with the weight of what his words meant. Are you joining another firm? He asked. I'm considering options, I replied carefully. But I haven't committed yet. Then don't commit until you speak to me, he said. Because if you decide to build something of your own, you won't be starting small. When the call ended, I set my phone down and just sat there, still, grounded, processing. By early afternoon, Hartwell sent out a formal client letter attempting damage control. Leah forwarded it to me, adding a short message. Leah, they're trying to convince everyone your departure was planned restructuring. The client responses are brutal. She wasn't exaggerating. Screenshots showed executives pushing back, some bluntly stating they no longer trusted the company's leadership. At 3:12 p.m., Michael emailed me again. Subject: urgent meeting request. Daisy, The board would like to discuss reinstating your role with revised compensation and expanded authority. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. Please respond. Michael. The difference in tone from Friday was staggering. Confidence replaced with desperation. But reinstating me wouldn't fix what had already happened. People don't forget being told their value is negotiable. At 4:58 p.m., I finally wrote back. One sentence. Michael, I am not returning. Daisy. Nothing more. No explanation, no softening, no apology. Because sometimes the strongest boundary is a closed door. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened Jonathan Gray's email again. A question formed. Steady, deliberate, undeniable. What if the clients weren't waiting for Hartwell to recover? What if they were waiting for me to build the alternative? By nightfall, my decision was no longer a possibility. It was a direction. Hartwell wasn't just losing clients. It was losing credibility. And the industry was already looking to me for what came next. The collapse had begun. But so had something else. A beginning built from the ashes of their arrogance. 2 weeks after the meeting where Michael flashed my salary like a joke, Hartwell Dynamics was unrecognizable. The industry didn't wait quietly. It reacted. Fast, loud, and without patience for incompetence. By Monday of the second week, the story had reached every major publication in the aerospace and engineering consulting sector. Articles weren't subtle. They called it what it was. A leadership failure disguised as cost-cutting strategy. Clients withdrew faster than Hartwell's internal teams could respond. The legal department was drowning in contract terminations. Procurement teams across defense and infrastructure networks had already updated their vendor databases, marking Hartwell as high risk. No one phrased it directly, but the meaning was clear. If the person clients trusted was gone, the contracts had no anchor. By Wednesday, Hartwell's revenue had dropped 46%. Not projected, not estimated. Actual, confirmed loss. A number large enough to shake investors, analysts, and anyone who understood the fragility of trust-based industries. And then, on Thursday morning, the headline appeared. Board removes CEO Michael Barrett. Following rapid revenue collapse. I stared at my screen longer than I meant to. Not with satisfaction, but with something quieter. Accountability. Michael didn't lose his job because of me. He lost it because he never understood what leadership means. Meanwhile, my days were full. Not chaotic, not rushed. Intentional. I was in discussions with Graybridge Capital, reviewing legal frameworks, exploring potential office locations, and outlining the structure for a firm built differently. One where expertise mattered. Where people weren't disposable. Where loyalty wasn't demanded. It was earned. At 10:44 a.m. that same Thursday, I received an email from Thomas Hale at the Department of Defense. Subject: Decision made, Daisy. We have concluded our internal evaluation. The department will not renew its multi-year contract with Hartwell. We will wait for your formal company announcement and proceed through the new vendor process as soon as you are ready. We trust you. Thomas. Those 3 final words stayed with me. Not because they were flattering, but because they were the opposite of how I had been treated in that conference room. At 1:17 p.m., I met with Jonathan Gray and his team. The meeting wasn't theatrical or dramatic. It was practical, detailed, and grounded in strategy. They asked me what kind of company I wanted to build. My answer was simple. One where clients never feel like line items, and employees never become cautionary slides. Jonathan smiled and slid a folder across the table. Then let's build it. By Friday morning, exactly 14 days after I walked out of Hartwell, we signed the formation documents for my new firm, Ellsworth Strategic Systems. We didn't need a recruitment campaign. We didn't need marketing. The industry already knew. By the end of week 3, 26 former Hartwell clients had formally moved their contracts to Ellsworth Strategic Systems, totaling over $310 million in confirmed first-year revenue. 7 additional clients were finalizing approval. And then came the moment I never expected, the one that made everything quiet inside me. An email from Hartwell's interim leadership team. Subject: Request for guidance. Daisy, we would like to schedule a meeting to discuss what went wrong and how the company can rebuild trust moving forward. Your insight could help prevent similar failures in the future. Please let us know if you're open to a conversation. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. Not out of anger, but resolution. Some doors stay closed not out of bitterness, but wisdom. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the window overlooking the city and let myself breathe, deeply, fully, without the weight of being undervalued. Because the truth was undeniable. I didn't destroy Hartwell. I didn't need to. They collapsed because they misunderstood the most fundamental rule of leadership. People are not replaceable simply because someone cheaper exists. Trust cannot be benchmarked. Respect cannot be discounted. And value cannot be measured solely in salary numbers on a screen. My departure didn't break the company. It revealed where it was already broken. And as the sun set over Chicago, orange light reflecting off skyscrapers and the lake beyond, one thought settled in my mind like a final sentence to a chapter already closed. Michael laughed at my salary. He thought I was overpaid. 2 weeks later, the industry answered for me. I was never 60% above benchmark. I was the benchmark.